It is clarified that these texts are not merely records or testimony, but constitute the operational roadmaps used directly by the colonizers. The mechanism that structured the order after the 1728 reset and shaped the resettlement process initiated in 1729. The following pages are presented as the translation preserved in the ancestral Great Library, the Ark, of a document delivered to the so-called loyal families at the beginning of the cycle. Human lineages positioned through direct connection with the colonizer, integrated into the system, and tasked with preserving, administering, and reproducing the established order without direct exposure. It is stated that the wording reflects an openly colonizing perspective. For this reason, the tone, language, and objectives are maintained without mitigation, as a faithful translation of Anunnaki language, acknowledging only minor imprecision resulting from differences in form and expressive linkage between linguistic systems. The text set out a design for the consolidation of the new humanity without reference, and for the stabilization of the perceptual ceiling limit, DPI, invisible dome projector, executed in layers through education, narrative, habit, exhaustion, and roles. The central warning stated that what follows originated from an ancestral translation of an Anunnaki custodial document, corroborable in records corresponding to the beginning of the cycle implemented during the year of repopulation in 1729. It was clarified that the content reflects the perspective of those who govern the known lands, and for that reason it presents language and objectives without mediation. It was further stated that nothing transcribed implies adherence. It is presented as the exposure of a mechanism designed not to be perceived, and as evidence that infiltration lines operate in silence with the sole purpose of dismantling the imposed order and restoring what was taken. Layer 1. Orientation. The first act of control does not consist in prohibition, but in deciding where human attention is directed. Before believing anything, the subject learns how to look. The system exploits a basic limitation. Perception cannot encompass everything at the same time. Where the gaze is fixed, attention is withdrawn from somewhere else. With that advantage, a constant direction toward the distant, the elevated, and the unreachable is installed. What is near is not denied, it is rendered irrelevant. The immediate environment represents risk because it can be verified. It can be touched, traversed, and compared. The distant, by contrast, can only be imagined. And that which can only be imagined admits narrative without verification. This orientation is installed from childhood. Looking upward is associated with progress, aspiration, and the future. Looking around is linked to the everyday and stripped of symbolic value. Education reinforces this direction by familiarizing the subject with distant names, impossible scales, and narratives of far-off exploration. The subject learns to admire what is never touched, while the inhabited territory is assumed to be fixed, given, and in no need of reading or suspicion. Entertainment consolidates the pattern by saturating the imagination with heights, perfect skies, and endless distances. Language completes the fixation. Advancing feels like ascending. Improvement becomes synonymous with moving away. Remaining is interpreted as stagnation. In this way, the horizontal limit ceases to exist in thought without ever needing to be discussed. The success of this layer is not measured by obedience, but by reflex. Faced with deep unease, the subject raises the gaze and loses contact with what surrounds them. One who does not read the terrain does not recognize limits, and one who does not recognize limits does not perceive enclosure. An orientation installed early becomes stable. The world appears to have always been this way, and for that reason, the system ceases to be visible to those who have already learned to look according to its design. General missions assigned to the loyal families, linked to Layer 1. At this stage, they do not guard physical structures. They guard the direction of collective attention. The primary task is to keep the gaze elevated. Content is not debated. Intervention occurs only when someone sustains persistent attention on the immediate environment. What is near is discredited without being attacked. It is rendered already known and without mystery, while what truly matters remains far away, reserved for others, or framed as unnecessary to attempt. Early signs of horizontal orientation are monitored. Those who describe the terrain before interpreting it, measure real distances, compare maps with direct experience, or develop persistence in reading their surroundings. Confrontation is avoided. Attention is diverted, saturated, or redirected toward higher containment layers. Continuity is kept invisible. The re-education of the gaze does not appear as an operation, but as culture, inheritance, and transmitted common sense.